This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradleyAbove and everything that we're talking about here today. Okay, I wanted to put a video together. This is called The Big Picture. And I know that there's a lot of people that have been in this space a long time. There's a lot of people been with me on this channel for a long time. And there's a lot of new people washing in and out of this crypto space as well as XRP. So I wanted to just I wanted to put together a whiteboard, not in the old school way that I do, but on screen here so we could all take a look at what I believe is a big picture about Ripple, the company, and how we can see them and what has taken place. We often talk about the market infrastructure being developed in the long game, and they talk about it at Ripple. Brad Garlinghouse talks about it. He doesn't think of, the price of XRP in 3 days or 3 months, but more like, 3 years or 5 years, right? And I totally understand that. I agree with that. And I think we're going to look at some things here that definitively show you that they have been building that infrastructure, and it's so enormous when you see it in this way, or at least it was for me, that I wanted to do it for you guys as well. So I'm going to recap some things that and then we're going to take a look at a diagram here in just a second. So let's go ahead and walk through this thing. Now, it's important to remember that Ripple is a blockchain infrastructure company. It started off as a fintech company, right? And then a payments provider. And now Brad Garlinghouse clearly refers to Ripple as a blockchain infrastructure company. And that is a very, very important distinction in my mind, and has been since the day I heard him say it in a powerful way. And I think we're going to show that to you. Now, we know that the asset XRP is a decentralized asset. Now, XRP was developed by OpenCoin. A lot of people that are still at Ripple Labs or went over to Ripple Labs, but it was developed at OpenCoin and then gifted to Ripple Labs for them to use and incentivize the players of the world that could bring the amount of utility to the network to properly use XRP to solve a problem, provide a use case. And I'm going to get to this in a second. But it's important to recognize that in order to do that, you have to go around the world. You have to go sit with all these different people. Miguel Viez has even said that in the early days, Chris Larson would be like, hey, I'm going to send so-and-so to go sit with the BIS, and I'm going to go send you to sit with this one and that one, and all these different huge central banks of the world and different regulators and players, and describe to them what we're talking about here and get them aware and educate them about this. And then later on, we saw an accelerator program for XRP, which $300 million worth of XRP was pre-allocated to incentivize an entire network from all different areas of industry, whether it be SMEs, whether it be financial institutions, banks, payment providers, things of that nature, market makers. This is the idea of the broad phrase cross-border payments. When you hear cross-border payments, you should be thinking all of these things, as well as family members sending money back home to a family, because that's important. It's very important. And the impact on that family is really going to be something that you can't overstate if you can bring the transfer fees down to near zero. So that is huge and impactful, but there is so much more happening here in the term cross-border payments. And I hope in some way we're going to be able to unpack that a little bit today. So we know that Ripple a few months ago, as I told you in the previous video, to watch this follow-up video, the ISO 2022 de facto global standard for modern payments, the committee for that has brought on Ripple as the first member to focus on distributed ledger technology. The implementation of blockchain and DLT to provide that de facto global standard. What do we know about RippleNet? RippleNet was really put together by many people, but certainly Marjan Delatine and Marcus Treacher both came from Swift. And who is on RippleNet? Oh, that's right, banks. Some of the biggest banks in the world. Well, let me ask a question, because who's servicing the world when it comes to payments and the wiring system for the banking and financial institution world right now? SWIFT. Well, that's interesting. Now, who owns SWIFT? Oh, that's right, banks. Is this on? Are you listening? So the biggest banks in the world own SWIFT. So the biggest banks in the world are also participating on RippleNet, which Marcus Treacher from SWIFT came over and helped develop and put together with the proper infrastructure and framework. I believe that RippleNet, the cloud-based services platform with governance and compliance built into it, has been built to become the new digital arm for SWIFT. And like anything else in the tech world, it could have been commissioned, or it could have been a thing where we're going to do it and impose the will of grabbing market share and forcing you to buy us, to buy RippleNet or merge with RippleNet in some way. Because sometimes you have to incent in business, in most cases, the only way to incentivize another business to lean in is to put pressure on them. And the best way to do that is start grabbing market share out of the space, right? When you can get market capture and you start grabbing that space, you start getting a chance to have a sit down and have a real conversation about what's going to go on next. So, understanding that they are on the ISO de facto global standard committee for modern payments, knowing that that is the big move for SWIFT to move to that, it's important to understand that you could yourself be an institution that is not truly on the ISO 2022 standard network at this time, but you could participate, in RippleNet and get the benefit of that because of the cloud-based service of RippleNet and all the partners on it without you yourself being compliant yet. They can make you compliant by going through that network and that organization. So that, to me, is a powerful statement. So we move on. I highlighted in the last video about I Am Legion. Stay with me because we're going to a diagram that I think clears a lot of this up. And he highlighted several posts that show you how SWIFT and Ripple sit right beside each other in a lot of these payment scenarios. And the way the diagrams are laid out, again, you see Ripple right here, right? ACH, SWIFT, all through here. Settlement standards and governance, messaging formats, network rules, messaging routing, settlement infrastructure, Ripple's right here. You know, they are a foundation layer to the entire new financial system. And I think I had a conversation yesterday with Big Skinny. Shout out to him. He made such a good point, and we macro sense-wise, we talk about this all the time. But he said it really clear and really best. You can't bring the old corrupt system into the new. And that immediately made me think of Marcus Treacher when he said in that little fireside chat interview that I've shown a few weeks ago, or maybe a month or two ago at this point, where he talked about we're not trying to build on the infrastructure that's here. We are building something new. And the reason they're doing that is because you're going to see this world move from a debt-based system to an asset-backed, math-based monetary structure. That is what I believe will become a large part of the foundational keys or keystones to the new monetary system, an asset-backed, math-based monetary structure using an immutable ledger like the XRP ledger to do that. All right, let's keep going because really this is pretty remarkable here. So, and obviously we saw Swiss banking giant unites with Ripple and SWIFT on one platform. Well, doesn't that in fact look like a lot of these different diagrams that you're seeing here that I Am Legion shared? Doesn't that look like it? Just like what the Swiss bank has done, All of this is falling. Look at the other names that are in front of these foundational layers that they go through. Swift or Ripple. Here it is. It's right in front of you. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this. Because this here, I think, brings it home right here. You have Ripple. As I said, Brad Garlinghouse refers to that as a blockchain infrastructure company. Why is that important? I'm going to tell you why in just a second. Then you have Spring, the development arm that is constantly creating with development teams and other developers all these projects to address the fragmentation of a new financial payment system that is being constructed and has been being constructed for the last several years. And what you're seeing take place here is that through Spring and through Ripple, the blockchain infrastructure company, they have developed something called RippleNet. And RippleNet, I believe, becomes the new digital arm for a company like Swift. That is a global banking wire service that now can have a new digital solution that works for the new digital payment infrastructure that can bring them up to date and up to standard. No third party necessary. Thank you, R3, for coming. Now, does that mean that R3's going to be disbanded and go away? No, because R3 becomes an interface in a way, because they have the Quarter platform for other companies out here to come and build on that platform, which allows them to participate in the larger financial network that's been built here. RippleNet, in my eyes, was built to be and serve as the new digital arm for Swift. And Ripple, the blockchain infrastructure company, built that, just like they built the XRP ledger when it was at OpenCoin and then gifted the XRP to Ripple, the company. Then you look at MoneyGram. MoneyGram was looked at as, I believe David Schwartz, if I'm not mistaken, said you could see it as an internal treasury. You know, I had a chance to speak with David when we were at Swell, and he talked about how, this gives the regulators an opportunity to look at a real-time example, a real example happening live in real time, and the benefits of this. And if you use MoneyGram as an internal treasury and see it that way, what you're really talking about in the remittance world is Bank A and Bank B going and sourcing the use of XRP for settlement through something like a MoneyGram. And then being able to, and it doesn't have to be banks, but I'm just using an example, but being able to settle through MoneyGram, and the mitigated risk is no longer on the banks through that transaction, but on MoneyGram. And this gave the regulators above here a chance to really analyze exactly what that looked like. And I believe David Schwartz said it best when we were going down the stairs back into the Swell conference that day. And you could see the video. It was on Twitter when we talked. There's really, at that point, we were at a place where, after they get done looking at this stuff, there's really nothing left to do but ramp it up. And to the credit of MoneyGram, they have seen year-on-year growth, really expanding MoneyGram and what they're doing, especially moving into the digital realm, whether it's a front-facing consumer app or on the back end of sourcing settlement with XRP and ODL. So this is remarkable. Now let's go over to a PolySign. PolySign created by David Schwartz and Arthur Brito, able to scale into the trillions. Well, I personally, and I could be wrong, but I personally see PolySign potentially becoming a new digital solution of settlement for the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation, the DTCC. And if you look at this as a whole here, what I see in my eyes is a brand new infrastructure for the world, especially the banking world, the largest banks, the central banks of the world, to begin to use. And if we're right about PolySign, a new settlement solution on a new financial system for the entire derivatives market. All the stocks around the world being able to settle through there every day, which, by the way, goes over into the quadrillion. I think 1.2, somewhere around there, has been the yearly number for the DTCC. 1.2 quadrillion. So on the daily, scaling into the trillions, if we're right about PolySign and what its functionality may end up being, we could see PolySign serve just in the same way that RippleNet does. And in one fell swoop, we are talking about still addressing the same phrase that Ripple's been telling us all the time, which is making cross-border payments better and easier. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I hope in some way we've been able to expand the conversation, and I hope in some way this diagram has given us all some kind of clarity about what maybe we're seeing roll out and what the long game has been and the market infrastructure that really truly has been put together by Ripple and others. And this, to me, is pretty remarkable. And if this, in fact, is pretty accurate to where we're going here, then it won't be much longer before we're going to see some synchronization of all these banks going on this system at once. I really do believe that. Now, whether that ends up being all the banks going on this system at some point at once after regulatory clarity and distinctions are made about the asset XRP, and maybe we see a full use of that system, or maybe we see a phasing in of that system of just like we did with MoneyGram. Like it gets clearance, it gets the approval to use it. And let's face facts, MoneyGram had the approval to use it because MoneyGram is a company that's filing papers with the SEC during that whole partnership of Ripple partnering with MoneyGram and the use of XRP. They had the permission to use it, or they would have been shut down. So the reality in my eyes is simply this, is that we may see all of these companies and banks go at one time, but we may see a phasing in of 1% of payments, and then sometime later 3%, 5%, 10%, just like we saw MoneyGram phase it in, and now they're saying 20% of all ODL payments are being sourced from utility use case. So that to me is a pretty remarkable number, and we'll keep an eye on all of this. Guys, hit the like and subscribe. That to me is the big picture. I'll catch all of you in the next one. Make sure you share with somebody you know.